皆様、本日はバンガー大学 MBA サンプル講義にお集まりいただきまして誠にありがとうございます。本日はバンガー大学ビジネススクールのエグゼクティブ教育アカデミックディレクター、スティーブン・ジョーンズさんをお招きしまして、モグレクチャーを行っていただきます。当ウェビナーは YouTube にて同時配信させていただいておりますので、表示名を変更させていただいております。レクチャーの最後には質疑応答の時間も設けておりますので、チャットでも日本語と英語で両方で質問を受け付けております。So, Stephen, could you please begin your presentation?
Okay, thank you so much. Hello, everybody. Konnichiwa. In Welsh, we would say Pnawn da, but don't worry, you don't need any Welsh to be able to follow this presentation or to study at Bangor Business School. It's a great pleasure to be able to speak with you. I first spoke Japanese in 1979, and I know that some of you will think, that's a very long time ago. It's before I was born. We won't talk about that. I worked in Singapore and I worked with a client company who were Nippon Electric. Enough of the past, more of the future. This program, we're very pleased to introduce to you. It's the Chartered Banker MBA. And shortly, I will give you an insight to the kind of way that we teach on this master's level postgraduate program by sharing with you a little bit about my own subject, which I teach on the program in marketing strategy. I'm also the academic director for the program, so I have an overall view of the program. And I'm going to ask my colleague Lisa Jones, no relation Jones, there are millions of us around the world. I'm going to ask my colleague Lisa, who's the program manager for executive education at Bangor Business School. I'm going to ask her to introduce the program before I take you through a sample lecture. Go ahead, please, Lisa.
Thank you, Stephen. Yes, so my name's Lisa Jones. I'm the Bangor Business School Executive Education Program Manager. It's a pleasure speaking with you this evening, and thank you for giving up your Saturday evening to join us and hearing more about the Chartered Banker MBA. So can you go to the next slide, please, Stephen?
Just a moment, I'm trying. Here we are. Hooray.
There you go. Okay, here's an image of Bangor University. Bangor University is located in the UK in Northwest Wales. The university was founded in 1884. It's a relatively small university. It looks a bit like Hogwarts here, but we attract around 10,000 students on campus each year, so quite small. But the university does pack a punch in terms of our outputs. 85% of the research conducted by our staff is considered world leading. And Bangor Business School is ranked highest of all other UK universities for research in the field of banking. The school was first in the UK to offer postgraduate degrees in banking and finance as well. And it's the home of the Chartered Banker MBA. And it's the only institution in the world that can offer this program that we're talking about today, the Chartered Banker MBA program. So the program was developed in 2011, and that's between the Chartered Banker Institute and Bangor University. And this was in the aftermath of the 2008-2009 financial crisis. It continues to be the only qualification in the world where you can gain the Chartered Banker and an MBA given simultaneously. It's been highly successful. Last year, we celebrated our 10th anniversary. So this one program in those 10 years attracted 100 1,000 students and graduates from 100 countries worldwide. And we've also been measured as one of the largest executive education programs in the UK. The next slide, please, Stephen. So the program has been designed for the busy professional. So these are people working in the financial services industry, and it's offered exclusively by distance learning. At the most, it'll take 24 months to complete 12 modules on the program. That's on the full program. But there will be candidates that will have qualifications, and if they present those on admission, they'd be given exemptions and they would join accelerated programs or a super accelerated program. So you could do as little as 4 modules if you've got an MBA, for example. So the super accelerated program is a very popular, it's probably the second most popular route. We do have very senior banking professionals that join this route. So we encourage people to send in their CVs, and we'll have a look at what qualifications you have, what experience that you've got. Then we can advise you on what study pathway would be most appropriate for you when you join. There is another course that you may wish to consider, and this is the Postgraduate Certificate in Bank Management and Technology. It's really the fastest route to gain the Chartered Banker designation. So if it was specifically that you were after, then this course is worth considering. It's 4 modules. It'll take 12 months to complete, and the entry requirements are as for the full program, and that would be an undergraduate degree with 2 or 3 years of industry work experience. So next slide, please, Stephen. So on the program, you'll have a combination of modules. You'll take some compulsory modules and some elective modules as well. Compulsory modules are assessed with a 2,000-word assignment and a computer-based exam, and you can sit that exam at a location of your choosing. It could be the office or at home. Alternatively, you may be taking an elective module in your semester, and that's assessed with a 3,500-word mini project. And those projects could be based on your place of work. It could be your industry or sector. So on the full program, you would take these 12 compulsory modules plus 4 elective modules. So you get the option to focus your MBA as you wish in terms of selecting the appropriate electives that you would like to take. On the accelerated route, you will be exempt from some of these topics. For example, if you have ACCA, you will be exempt from corporate strategy and financial analysis, for example. So your options become less. And on the super accelerated route, the 4 topics are pre-selected, but we can advise you on the exact combination of modules that you'll take should you send in your CV. So that's an introduction to the Chartered Banker MBA programme. Stephen Jones will now take you through an example lesson from the marketing strategy elective that's been recently named the Customer Journey in Financial Services, to give you, thank you, Stephen's just highlighting it here, to give you a flavour of the lectures that you would have as a student on the Chartered Banker MBA programme. Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. Well, it's now the opportunity to give you an insight to what a lecture would look like. This is material extracted from the lecture that I gave the last time it was delivered. and there are a series of 8 lectures throughout the semester. This was lecture 1, and I've also, let me just get this up, I've also included a little bit about assessment. Now, the thing to say is that this is not going to be a heavy lecture, and I don't want to put you off by you thinking, I wouldn't know how to answer that assessment. Of course you wouldn't, because you haven't taken the module yet. But the idea is to give you an insight. Lisa was telling you on the previous slide, some modules have an examination, which is computer-based, and then they have a piece of coursework. And this module has a mini project, like a consultancy project. So I'm going to take you through this emphasis on the customer, and it's in financial services because it's the Chartered Banker MBA. If at any time you want me to slow down, repeat something, please just pop something in the chat, and one of our colleagues will note it and draw it to my attention, or we could tackle it at the end. Rory might note that. I suppose I could start by asking the first question. How many of you, if anyone, has studied marketing as a subject before? Anybody want to say anything about, you could do it in the chat area, whether you've studied marketing before, the subject of marketing? You could, of course, contribute in Japanese, and Rory could translate. Anybody willing to admit to having studied marketing before? Okay, we'll wait and see if anyone says anything. Incidentally, can you see the whole screen? I'm not blocking it out by showing the camera shot and things. Do I need to minimize the pictures?
Looks fine, Stephen.
It's fine, okay. So I want to start out by introducing you to the work of Charles Darwin. And you may think, I thought this was a program about banking. What is Charles Darwin doing? Because Charles Darwin is actually a natural scientist. He was. And he came up with many of the ideas about evolution. But he coined a phrase that says, it's not necessarily the largest organism that survives in evolution, but the one that recognizes that things are changing and is able to adapt. So, of course, the overall idea here is in the natural world, but I believe it applies equally in the business world. And we could take what Charles Darwin said and paraphrase it for business. It's not necessarily the largest business organization that will survive when there's change. It's the one that is able to adapt most effectively to changing conditions. And how do organizations adapt to changing conditions? Well, it's because they have managers and employees who recognize that things are changing and then come up with strategies that manage that change. So it's all about having a set of skills, a toolkit to be able to look out of the window, see that the world is changing, and determine what is the impact for my customer, because the module is entitled The Customer's Journey, and what is the impact for my organization. Ultimately, of course, it's what is the impact for me as an employee or a manager. Lisa mentioned that Bangor Business School is preeminent in the UK and recognized across the world for its research in banking and financial services. But of course, on a program like this, which is about application of concepts to the world of financial services, we don't just use our own ideas, we acknowledge the ideas and contributions of other researchers. And in this slide, I share with you the work of Waleszewski. So Waleszewski and colleagues in 2019 published this idea, so it's just before COVID-19 hit us globally, published this idea about the interactive business world. The interactive business world. Now, I don't propose to read every single word on these slides. It's to give you a flavor of what it would be like in a lecture. But the important thing, building from the previous slide where Charles Darwin said, be aware of changes, animals, plants, organizations need to be aware of changes. You need to understand, how does my organization interact with other organizations? It's not only just interacting with other financial services organizations, it's interacting with government and the regulator who sets the regulations for how we should behave. And what I want to pick up from the rest of this slide is just to draw your attention to any business, every business is related to all other businesses. All businesses are directly affected by change. Business cannot consider itself to be independent, isolated, an island. And what managers need to be, you in your future careers, managers need to be aware of the interactive features. And you need to be skilled in identifying what's changing, how does it affect me, as I've previously said, and that's what this program is about. This Chartered Banker MBA is about giving you the toolkit so that you can understand what's changing and understand how all of these things are interrelated, they are dependent on each other. As an example of another piece of work published in the domain of financial services, this one's taken from the broader marketing area, the broader marketing. And what it shows is over time, from 1965 through to 2015, let me see about changing the color of the pen here, through to 2015, it's showing the development of patterns or key concepts in marketing. And the key thing that comes over this time period, the key thing that we see over this time period is that of relationships. Relationships. It started out here and it's a continuing theme even today in 2022. Relationships. Organizations, whether they be universities, any industry, particularly financial services industries, need to develop a relationship with their customer. And how can they do that? Well, first of all, let me talk about a little more about this idea of relationships. Relationships between an organization and its customers. The last slide talked about how it's developed in the period from 1965 to 2015, when that article was published. And here we can see that relationships are not the only thing that changed in that period. We became much more global. Technology became more important. Here's the focus on the customer. Ethical behavior became critical. The idea that we need to behave in a sustainable manner, greening. And all of this requires that organizations are able to build this relationship first. To build a relationship, we need information about our customer, about other stakeholders like the regulator. And the thing that will continue the relationship is if the customer trusts us. So the customer needs to trust us so that they will come back for not just the first transaction, but subsequent transactions. And in this module, and indeed in all my teaching of marketing, I have a very simple model. Here we have a customer. Here we have an organization. In the Chartered Banker MBA, we are talking about organizations who are banks, insurance companies, all sorts of aspects of financial service. And what are they trying to do? They are trying to have an exchange. The organization has something that the customer wants. They have an exchange. How do we manage that exchange? Well, we start out by trying to understand what the customer wants. What does the customer want? And then within the organization, we take the information from the previous slide, the importance of information, and we try and create something that the customer will value. So what does the customer want? What does the customer value that makes our offering different to the competition? There are always competitors. And what we need to do is we need to make sure that the offering we have is better than competing solutions. We have to communicate what it is that we've created. And then when the customer comes and says, I would like some of that, we have to deliver. We have to deliver what we've promised. So we make a promise. And then if we're successful in delivering it and it satisfies the customer, well, then the customer may come to us again and we go round in a circle and we've developed a relationship. This is exactly a model that applies to everything that you and I do. When we purchase food, we have a need. The customer values that we seek is to satisfy hunger. Various companies create food offerings, they tell us about them, and if we go to buy them in a supermarket or we go to a restaurant, they have to deliver, and then we take a view. I had a need. Did the company satisfy my need? If not, then I will look elsewhere for a supplier next time I have the need. If they satisfied my need, I may consider using that same provider again. And that model applies to all industries. So there's a challenge, how to understand what the customer wants, create, communicate, and deliver, as on the previous slide. But we don't have to do it on our own. The United Nations has come up with some principles for responsible banking. How should our organization behave as a bank responsibly? I don't propose to go through the detail. I merely wanted to show you this so you could see we draw on academic papers, the likes that I showed you before. We draw on government bodies or non-government bodies across the whole world, the United Nations. And then here, this is our partner, the Chartered Banker Institute, that awards the Chartered Banker status, that, as Lisa said, it's the only program in the world that offers an MBA and Chartered Banker recognition. And our colleagues at the CBI, our professional partner, came up with this concept of the responsible banker. So you can see that these things, the United Nations, our professional partner, and then we put it into giving you a toolkit so that your organization can create offerings that customers will buy because you are behaving in a responsible manner. And the Chartered Banker, you can have a look, put Chartered Banker Institute into any search engine, and you'll be able to find they are a source not only of the award called the Chartered Banker, but also a knowledge hub. And they recognize that in the concept of the responsible banker, there are, let me just go back there, there are 4 components. You have to be aware of what's happening, what's changing, i.e. not living in the past, thinking about the future. You have to think about, how does my behavior impact not just the sustainability of my organization, but of the planet, okay, the green agenda. I have to increasingly be aware of things that are happening with technology, and also I have to behave in an ethical manner so that I don't exploit customers, I don't do damage to the environment, etc. So you can see that we're bringing all these ideas together in this module, and here's a framework that I create in the module. You'll recognize, here's the chartered banker. Okay, so that's from CBI. The part here is from the United Nations. This is the United Nations responsible banking. Here also is the model that I introduced you to. Let's see what color I'm going to use for that. Here's the model that I introduced you to here. Understand, create, communicate, deliver. And then the other, call up a color here, the other 4 aspects are taken from what we call a core text that we use to support your learning. So we've taken the view from the United Nations, we've taken the view from the Chartered Banker Institute, we've taken a view of the model of marketing, and we've integrated them all together. And what we're particularly interested to know, relating back to the slide about Charles Darwin, we're particularly interested to know about how things change, because there's always change. So we need to be aware of the external environment. Here's our company. This is the company, the bank, let's say, that we work for. Here are our customers. Here are competitors who are trying to take the customers from us. And we may recognize this idea of 3 C's. 3 C's. And those 3 C's are at the heart of marketing. In the macro environment around the outside are things that companies cannot control: legal, changes in the physical environment, developments of new technologies, the economic situation. As Lisa mentioned, this program came about after the global economic crisis of 2008, 2009, and the way that individual customers like you and I behave. Nowadays, certainly in the UK and many other parts of the world, people don't want to go to their physical bank anymore. We do everything using technology. I'd be surprised if it's very different in Japan. So we need to understand what's happening in this external environment, and then we have to get from this situation, so this is time X, and then this is time Y. How are we going to move our organization? What changes are there externally? Now, I don't know if you, let me just call down the chat area. I don't know if you'd feel comfortable for sharing a few of your thoughts on what's happened here. What's changed in technology in the last few years? How have things changed over time? How have things changed globally? Does anybody want to either advise Rory or actually say to, in the chat area, in English, unfortunately, for me to read it, how you think technology has changed? Just what changes have there been in technology, let's say in the last 10 years? Anybody want to contribute an idea? Anybody want to? I realize it may take a moment or two if you're going to type it in Japanese and Rory's going to actually translate it. Anybody think about any changes that there have been in technology? What's changed in technology in the last 10 years? Okay, I don't see anything yet. Do feel free to put something in the chat area. The most obvious change in technology, it was already happening before the COVID-19 pandemic, was we were getting more and more involved using the technology of technology, banking. I hope you can see I'm holding up my phone. There are two companies that dominate in mobile phones around the world. One is Apple, mine is a Samsung. I don't know what phone you yourself have, but around the world, we've become more used to technological applications. They have both benefits and they have drawbacks. So, for example, we can do a lot of things, banking, using technology on our mobile phone. But of course, it does sometimes mean that we're dependent. If the technology fails, if somebody can fraudulently hack into our technology, then we lose information. And therefore, we need to be aware of technological solutions and their positive and their negative aspects. During COVID, many people could not get to their bank branch, they could not get to the supermarket, and they became more dependent on using technology to order their requirements and have them delivered to home. Some banking services, of course, we can use the technology to check our balances, to move things, to make payments. We no longer need to go to what was traditionally the place of interaction, the bank branch. So things change over time. And the big challenge is, how do we respond as a company? What we're trying to do when the environment changes, the organization needs to change its strategy. And it's all about achieving fit. And here's the example as to why we need to be aware. There's change. It happens all the time. You may be aware of the futurologist called Alvin Toffler. And Alvin Toffler said, the only constant is change. The only thing that we can expect will always be there is change. So change is happening. Managers may be ignorant. They don't notice the change. These are the so-called barriers to change. And if we have a barrier that says, well, we don't have a marketing information system that recognizes change, or as managers, we are not confident that we understand the implications, we don't have the toolkit that Chartered Banker MBA can provide, then we may also delay. And the problem for companies are, these are the three outcomes, these are the three results. If we recognize the change, we don't delay, we can reposition our company gradually. Unfortunately, if we do delay, whoopsie-daisy, wrong side. If we do delay, then what we have to think about, if we delay or we're ignorant, we then have to change things very radically, very dramatically. That's not really showing up very well. Let me change the color again. If we are ignorant and we delay and we leave it far too late, well, the company may fail. The company is closed down. I mentioned earlier about we have a core text for every module. We don't just go through the core text slavishly, we progress slowly but surely, and we introduce lots of other additional ideas. And our core text by NU and colleagues for this financial services marketing module asks the question, what went wrong with financial services? I'm not going to go through them all, but you can see some of them just from the brief discussion we've had today. Many organizations failed to put the consumer interest, understand your customer. Many of them didn't build trust. Remember that diagram that had relationships, it had information, and it had trust going across everywhere. So it's all about not recognizing consumer, what their requirements are, not building trust. So we come at the heart of our module to what's marketing about? Marketing is about understanding the customer. Marketing sometimes attracts the condition known as myopia, short-sightedness. We don't recognize competitors. And now, how many years ago is this? It's 35 years ago. The famous management guru Tom Peters said, there's a challenge for all organizations. In our module, we look at it in the context of the financial services industry. Every organization needs to view the operation from the customer's perspective. Once we've looked at things from the customer's perspective, which the previous slide said, that's what went wrong with financial services around the world. We no longer continue to look at things from the customer's perspective. Once we've understood what the customer wants, then we have to redefine, we have to change every element of the business. We have to understand the interactions, and we have to focus on the customer. And because many aspects of financial services are intangible, we can't touch them, we can't feel them. How does the customer actually perceive things? We need that understanding as well. So there are, oh, I see how this slide's working. Yeah. So there are some key questions that every organization should ask themselves. I'm not going through them in detail now. We don't have the time for that, but it's just to show how we draw things together and then we pose questions for any organization. Could be the university, could be a food manufacturer, could be a clothing retailer, a car manufacturer. But in our example, we look at financial services. And remember, it's all about focusing on the customer. Who is important? What do they want? What are their choice criteria? When do they want to buy? What time? Where do they want to buy? Historically, in a bank, we'd have gone to the bank branch. And how we would buy, we'd go to the bank branch. Then, of course, came technology. Now, when? Could be 24/7. Where? We could be doing it on our mobile phone. And how is we're using technical solutions, not going physically to meet the bank manager. Now, this is one way of understanding how to group customers together, how to segment customers. It's about humans, it's about human life, and it's about stages. Now then, where am I? So across the bottom here is time. And the most obvious thing that's happening here is we get older, age. But it's more than that. It's whether we're single, it's whether we're in a relationship, it's whether we have children, it's whether we're working, it's whether we're retired. All of these are ways of taking the total market and cutting it up into segments of different sizes and that have different needs. I am here. I am here. There is just my wife and I at home. Our kids have flown the nest. Anybody want to say, where are you? Where are you on this spectrum? Any of you want to contribute in the chat or mute or unmute rather? Where are you on this spectrum? Where do you fall? Let me be very cheeky and start out by saying, Rory, where are you in this? Where do you fall in this spectrum here? Or Mike, where do you fall?
Me.
Yeah, where do you fall, Rory?
At home single.
You're at home single.
Yeah.
So this is Rory's there. Mike, where are you?
I think he's not here.
He's not there. Okay, Lisa, where are you?
I put mine in the chat. I'm middle-aged parent.
Okay, so she's put it in the chat. Let's have a look. Yeah, I'm a middle-aged parent, says Lisa. So that puts her here. Okay, so Lisa is here. And we can understand by taking this very simple view, which is about age, but it's about social grouping, it's about aspects of in work or retired. And this is me. This is Stephen. I'm here. Where's Mike? Well, we can be sure Mike is not retired, I don't think. And Mike will be somewhere in here. So he's not here to defend himself. He'll be somewhere in here. We're not quite sure where. So we can get a sense of grouping customers together who have similar requirements, similar needs, and designing a product for that one, which could be slightly different. So, for example, if we think about financial services, when people come together, certainly in many cultures, let me just call up a pen. In many cultures, when people come together as a couple, there is the desire to move into their own accommodation, their own home. So one of the things you can sell here is a mortgage, a loan to buy property. When a couple have children, then because the children come along, maybe they're interested in an educational plan for financing the education, insurance for the parents in case anything happens to them and the children still have financial security. A big change is here, working to retired. Here we still have income. Here we need to have saved enough to retire. So even in that very simple example, we see that this idea of segmentation and dividing segments up, and different countries have different sizes of segments. For example, some countries have a very large segment that has lots of children. Others have a segment which is very large in the retired area. I'll stop there to see if there are any questions before I talk a little bit about how the module is assessed. Does anybody have any questions they want to ask at this point in time? Perhaps you're saving them for the end. This is what's called the mini project. It's the way that we assess your learning. Each module, this is marketing strategy, will assess your learning so that you can be awarded the degree. And this year, the project, it's always about application. It's always like a consultancy project, an organization of your choice. Most people use their current employer to analyze. You could also do it of an organization of which you're a customer. You'll see that in this module, the coursework requires, the mini project requires 3,500 words. They are here. There's another slide to come up. And it's very much about what's happening, what's changing. So people introduce their organization concisely, and then they talk about the type of customer, they talk about the competitor, and you'll remember that those are the 3 C's that I mentioned a little earlier. The 3 C's: customers, competitors, our company. And then it's about change. Here are some situations. Alvin Toffler, as I reminded you, said the only constant is change. Here are some changes. COVID pandemic, the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. So tell me a little bit about the background of your organization and clear structure as to what you need to do. And then have a look at how did managers respond. It's that diagram I showed you earlier. Okay, we talked about it like this. There's a change, there's delay, and then organizations may respond in one of 3 ways. And if they leave things too late, then they're likely to be in this situation here. But what this part of the question is asking you to do is, how did the managers respond? So it's critical reflection. to try and understand, did they recognize change? Did they respond appropriately? Unit 1 is just where we say to the students where it is in the material. And then they take a product from part 1 and they analyze it. You're going to look at these and say, I don't know the appropriate frameworks. That's correct, you don't, because this is only the introductory lecture. I'm merely trying to show you that in assessment, we give you clear guidance as to what we're looking for. Here are the remaining words, and all of those words, as I said earlier, will add up to 3,500 words. Here, we're asking you in part 3 to interpret how the organization responded. Does it have a strategy to recognize change and respond to change? And these concepts, you won't necessarily know them unless you have studied marketing, but you will by the time you've studied the marketing module, get you to analyze and interpret the organization using tools. Finally, this year, the mini project asks students in 700 words to actually look at some of the concepts of marketing that were introduced in the module. Are they suitable for an ever-changing world? How do they relate to this idea of the Chartered Banker Institute? You remember the responsible banker. I think we're making these slides available to you after so that you can have a look at those concepts. The responsible banker from the Chartered Banker Institute who awards chartered banker status. Does the banker think about the future? Do they think sustainably? Okay, do they think ethically? Do they have the skills digitally? So the mini project, which as Lisa said is like a consultancy project, is very much about applying ideas from the toolkit. That's an example of what a lecture would be like. Of course, a lecture normally lasts in this session for an hour. We haven't had that time. And I'm happy to take any questions about the content, the focus of how we introduce not just marketing strategy, but all those other modules which Lisa showed earlier. This is about executive education. What we're trying to do is teach you at a distance. We change the color there. We're trying to teach you using technology some innovative tools for the professional development of leaders, managers in companies. I'm happy now to take any questions that you might want. The final thing to say is that the Chartered Banker is not our only program. In executive education, we've launched a new one, which is about financial crime and the need for compliance. So this also, it's an MBA, it's dual qualification, not with the Chartered Banker Institute. That has financial intelligence specialist designation from our partner, Manchester CF. But perhaps what I'll do is I'll just click back through the slides, mind your eyes as we've jumped through these, to this first one here, the study pathways and the content of the program, to see if anybody has any questions. Please feel free to either type them in the chat, unmute and speak them yourself, or type them in Japanese for Rory to translate for us. Please go ahead.
皆様、もし質問などございましたら、チャットでも日本語と英語の両方で受け付けております。 I got one question on chat.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much for your presentation.
Yeah, I can see.
Oh, I was just wondering if you have any scholarship available, and also average how many students studying in per class.
Okay, thanks for that question. We don't see who you are in detail. You're anonymized, but student C, thank you very much, as we say in Welsh, diolch yn fawr for that question. First of all, how many students studying per class? In this particular module that I'm talking about, the customer journey, the marketing strategy one, I think there were 32 the last time, 32. So class sizes are not large. They vary across different modules. Lisa, do you want to say anything about scholarships?
Yeah, just to touch on what you were talking about, class sizes as well. The compulsory modules will attract around 65 to 70 students, but because marketing strategy or the customer journey is an elective, then that's why there are fewer students. So around 35, as you mentioned, Stephen. Yes, there are scholarships available. They normally run at the very beginning of an intake. There aren't any at the moment for the next intake, which is in autumn. So if you wanted to join the autumn intake, you'd have to apply by the end of October. And then the next intake would be spring, which starts in April. So normally there are scholarships available, but we also have payment plans as well. So I would recommend that you get in touch and we can advise you on what's available when you're interested in starting.
Okay, so thanks for that question. Any other questions that you want to ask? I know it's a lot to take in. The idea was to give you an indication of the kind of lecture. That is exactly the kind of lecture that we would have. That's the kind of content, and you would have materials to study in parallel, and the lectures take you through the key points. And there are discussion boards, which are online discussion boards in between lectures. Does anybody have another question they'd like to ask? There's the picture of, it isn't Hogwarts, but if you go online and have a look at bangor.ac.uk, you'll see that there are some images that might make you think you're in Hogwarts. We are a traditional university. We focus on research. We focus on applying that research in our teaching so that you have the latest ideas. Any further questions anyone wants to ask? Any comments you'd like to make?
Can I ask you one question?
Sure, go ahead.
Sorry. Could you remind me what is the deadline for September 2023 application?
Go ahead, Lisa.
Thank you, Rory. The deadline for the next intake is the 31st of October.
Oh, thank you.
And just to clarify, the 31st of October is for immediate entry, not for entry in 2023, isn't it, Lisa?
That's it. Students will start in November, in the first week of November. So it's advisable to apply sooner if you can do. It gives us time to set everything up, but the deadline is the 31st of October. The next intake after that would be in April. 2023.
Thank you. 皆様、他に質問はございますでしょうか。We got one question.
Okay,
on
yeah, I
chat.
take a question from student B. Thanks, student B. And it says, how many international students on the MBA course? In Bangor University, we have a range of MBA courses, some of which students come on campus to study. So we have MBA International Management, MBA Marketing, and on those on-campus programs, I am getting ready to teach marketing strategy, a version of this module, to more than 400 students. But on this program, as we talked about, Lisa said, on the compulsory modules, class size 60 or so, on the electives, about 30. And the percentage that are international students, I would say the percentage is about 90%. 90%. And on the Chartered Banker MBA, they are almost all in financial institutions. Or you might like to expand on that, Lisa?
Yes, I would echo what you've just said. And there are participants wanting to work in the financial services sector, wanting to move into that sector, and would be interested to take this program. So providing that they have the required entry requirements, so an undergraduate degree and a number of years of work experience as a minimum, then they could undertake this program.
And just to share with you, the last time this module is for this Chartered Banker is just coming to an end. They are due to submit their mini project individually at the end of September. And in the class, there were people from the UK, there were people from different parts of Africa, from the Middle East, from Malaysia, from Hong Kong, from various places in the Caribbean, the Bahamas, Jamaica. So it's a very international class. You meet online. It's a great way to build a network, an international network. These programs attract international students. And as I say, about 90% of the student intake would be international students. I hope that's answered your question, but please do feel free if there are any more that you want to ask to pop them in the chat area now.
Maybe just to close, we showed a slide of Bangor Business School's executive education programs, and we've introduced the Chartered Banker MBA, and you've had a session with Stephen Jones, who is a module director teaching on this program. There are also the option to take individual modules. So if you would like to continue with the marketing strategy course as been introduced today, you could take that single module in isolation if you wanted to. That gives you an opportunity to try the program, to see if you like it, if you like the way that it's been structured, and if it meets your needs. You could sign up for the single module and then enroll later onto the Chartered Banker MBA if that's what you choose to do. So there is that option, or any of the modules on the program. So if it's not quite this module you were after, if it's corporate strategy, for example, or financial institutions risk management, you could take one module initially before enrolling onto the full program.
Okay, and those range of modules are here. Okay, so that's the full range of modules there. Hopefully that's showing to you now.
Yeah.
Yeah, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you could take any of these. And if you completed the assessment, you would gain the credits that you could take and transfer onto your the remainder of your study. There we are. Okay, it's great to have this opportunity to speak to you. As Lisa said, it's been about the Chartered Banker MBA. You can take individual modules. You may get some exemptions. Do please get in touch to find out if this program's suitable for you and which route you would be able to take, or try an individual module. It's been great talking to you. Thanks for giving up your time on a Saturday evening. Enjoy the rest of your evening and the weekend. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your great lecture and presentation.
Thank you.
Bye
皆さん、
bye.
本日は SIUK のウェビナーをご覧いただきまして誠にありがとうございました。もしご不明点などございましたら SIUK のオフィスの方にお問い合わせください。それでは本日はありがとうございました。Thank you so much.
Bye bye.
Thank you.
Bye.